If it's too sloppy, you just lose people. And that's what was happening. We were getting, like I said, we had videos that were shaking, the light was bad. The pain up front of coaching, of training, of getting better at it makes all the difference down the road. And eventually the footage comes through and it's pristine every time and there's hardly any rework. And it's just like a nice product moving through your factory. We found that when that picture goes up, they instantly get a bit of a boost and it feels good. The idea of lean all of a sudden you go, wow, that's amazing. Because lean really is just wherever your waste is, your waste can convert right into profit if you're able to figure out how to do that. I actually use these three images when I think of Yokoten. The spirit of Yokoten really needs all three of these things to be active. You've got to have the sharing, you've got to have the receiving, and then you actually have to turn it into something. And if you get a group of people who do this over and over and over on a regular basis, you kind of have unlocked a level on them. They level up. And it was just sort of a relief to go, this is really working. This really is working. It's not smoke and mirrors. This isn't, you don't have to fake it. The rules are fairly simple and you just keep at it. It really makes a difference.
Well, welcome everyone. Format for this afternoon, is we're going to have a presentation from our special guest on Yokoten. And then after that, we will go around the table with 4 selected speakers who have questions ready to go. Let's get this thing started. Our special guest today is General Manager of Goba Sport Group, which is a sporting equipment factory based in southern China that makes springless trampolines. He's been inspired by Paul Akers' 2-second lean on his journey to building a world-class organisation. I've shared with the group in the lead up to today his YouTube channel, where you'll find before and after improvements, continuous improvement tips and insights into how to apply lean principles. Now, I've got to say that the numbers do not lie. 371 videos, 1,280 subscribers, the big one, 271,913 views. So I'm calling it, that makes him the undisputed YouTube king of before and after videos, and ANZ 2-second lean special guest for the topic of Yokoten. Welcome, Norma O'Hara.
Oh, thank you. That's a very kind intro, very kind. And thanks you everyone for letting me be here. Just an aside on the video, I was with my kids and we were horseback riding. And there was a very funny scene. I won't give you all the details because it's a bit crass, but there was a horse who had obviously had a big meal. And before we were about to get on the horse, he had to take care of things. And my daughter said, "Put that on your channel. You'll get so many views." So, that's right. Anyways, let me share my screen here and then we can get right into it. Well, I'm going to go as quick as I can so that we can get to some of the questions. But I did want to give you just a little bit about me, about our company, about our lean journey, and then how all of that folds into Yokoten. We were sharing before, Matthew and I, that this is a topic that really does fit so nicely with our story. And so it's a really neat opportunity for us to share. So very first off, I work for a company called Goba Sports Group, and you may have seen our product before. Looks like this. This is a spring-free trampoline. We make other things as well, outdoor sporting equipment for families. And it's awesome stuff, really good quality. And we do it all through this division of our company. It's called DGSH Sourcing. Dongguan Shenghui is the Chinese name, but we find most people find DGSH a little easier to roll off the tongue. If you wanted to find us, there's Hong Kong on the map. We're just a little bit above that, right where that mark is. And this is our team. We have 200 absolutely fantastic staff. And, they're such a blessing to work with. You can see a very bald white head right in the middle of that picture. I don't know how big your screen is, but that's us in the middle. It's such a joy to work with this team. And to be honest, almost everything we've done, I owe it to them. Get to share about our journey and our improvements, but it was really the hard work of this team that does it. And so I want to just start by honoring them and making sure they get the credit. As I was thinking about our lean journey, I came across this pyramid, and some of you probably have seen this before. You remember it in high school or in university, but this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And the idea basically is that at the bottom, these are the basic needs that you need: food, water, shelter. And as you work your way up, you kind of get right to the top, and now you're thinking about meaning and purpose. And everyone really needs to evolve along the same path. And it's kind of interesting because our lean journey follows a very similar path. And I want to just share sort of how it works. So if you can imagine on the physiological needs, this is just survival, getting exactly what you need. And our why, when we came to lean, it wasn't actually because we wanted to have a world-class culture. That wasn't really our number one drive at the beginning. To be honest, we were in survival mode. And so we were thinking about improving cash flow, lowering our costs, and reducing our inventory. And to give an example, this is what our mat sewing area used to look like. You can't really see it super clearly, but in the back, if you look back there, you'll see just stacks and stacks and stacks of work in progress, 10, 12 feet high. And this is what it looks like today. And so the big difference, besides the paint and the colors and things like that, is we reduced that inventory. One of the things we found we didn't even realize at the beginning was that we had about $350,000 of work in progress cash flow tied up just in materials. So you can imagine if you can reduce all that down to just a very minimal amount, how much healthier the business gets. And so we were really thinking survival at the beginning. That's why we came to lean. But what happens is once you get those first bits taken care of, now you're eating, you've got shelter, you're getting water. Now you're thinking about your health. You're thinking about employment, property, family. This is really about, to me, stability. And so what we started focusing on after we were going through those early days was let's start thinking about 3S. Visual management, some of our standard work. This is the systems that come around it. To be honest, visual management or 3S, you're not actually making money when you put lines on the floor, but you're creating a system to keep you stable. And a good example with standard work is a very simple one. If you talk to Tom Hughes, he always mentions how shocked he is at how few people actually have good standards in their factory, and we were one of them. It was all tribal knowledge. We didn't have any standards written down, and so we had to start right from the beginning. And so we started focusing on building those. The third level, once you're not going to starve, you've probably got work. Maybe you're starting to think about a mate. You're starting to build friendships and circles and community. And in our factory, it wasn't that we wanted to start focusing on helping our staff find a mate, although a couple of people have done that. That's not really our objective, but we wanted to start building a winning team and what that looked like. And so we started with our morning meetings. So we didn't do morning meetings at the very beginning of Lean. It kind of took a little bit. We had to work up to it. We started doing Gemba walks, and we did factory visits where we would go to other factories. And here's just an example where we took 50 of our staff up to the Toyota factory, which is just about an hour away from us. And we're able to go and see how they're running their operation and see what a real world-class organization looks like. Fourth level. This is kind of where now things are going all right. You're stable, all your basic needs are being met, and you're starting to get a bit of confidence. You're looking for respect. You're actually starting to thrive as an individual. And what does that look like from a lean perspective? That's where you start hosting tours. So now you're thinking, okay, we're going to let people come in and actually see what we're doing. And we've had a couple examples of opportunities to do that, whether it's with schools, you can see the picture here, other companies, the government has come in a number of times to see what we're doing, and even just inviting our families in. We start doing YouTube videos, and that's about when in the chain of process where we started thinking, hey, maybe we'll dare put this out for other people to see, or even just sharing like I get the opportunity to do today. So this is sort of at that fourth layer. The last one, Maslow calls it the self-actualization, but this is really where you're now thinking about purpose and meaning. And this is pretty rarefied. And to be honest, we're actually not there yet. We're working on it, but this is where you're now mentoring others. You're really nailing down organizational excellence. You've got a world-class culture. When someone's writing a book, someone like at Seating Matters, they're in this zone. Paul was in this zone, and there's a couple other people who are really nailing it up in this level. And that's where we are aspiring to get to. I was telling Matthew one part about our journey. Early on, we were actually at Toyota with some of our leaders, and we were kind of coming out, and we went for dinner, and we were just saying, could we ever be a world-class business? Could we actually be world-class? And if you've been to China and you've been around, you'll see factories, they all start looking exactly the same. They've got these same gates around them. It looks like everybody uses the same kind of tile and brick. But what we wanted is that someone who would drive by us, they may not realize that we're any different, but if they actually could step inside, could they experience something that's absolutely world-class? And that was kind of that's our big goal that we're striving for. So how does all of this tie with Yokoten? To be honest, almost everything we just showed you, we owe to this concept. And so I think it's just such a great topic, and I think it's so relevant to our journey. And to be honest, I think it's actually one of the pivotal axis on which a lot of lean thinking and behavior kind of turns. And so Ryan, in his book, he calls it, it's just sharing ideas across the organization. And I actually use these three images when I think of Yokoten. I'll explain each one, and you'll kind of see what I mean. The first one, though, is pretty self-obvious. It's this idea, we got an idea. We're sharing this idea. And to be honest, even though the definition is sort of sharing it across an organization, you could probably zoom out a little bit, and you could share it across just a whole industry or a whole community. And that's really the spirit of 2-Second Lean. I mean, it's a group of givers, and they truly share everything. There's a 2-Second Lean book in Chinese that we were able to use, give to all of our staff, and we didn't pay a penny for it. All that knowledge, videos on YouTube. This to me is the best of the best when you come to videos. When you look at Jack's videos, I watch them every day. Ideas, inspiration, freely given every single day. It's unbelievable. World-class content like Ryan's podcasts that are just so rich and dense. So there's already a spirit of Yokoten in our community because we're already sharing things. And I think if one word could sum up sort of the whole 2-Second Lean community, that is this idea that we're givers. We've received a lot of it freely, and we want to give it all freely as well. And I think that's a really key part of our journey, and probably most of us in the group, to be honest. But how do we do Yokoten in our factory? Well, what we do is we also focus on giving a lot. And one tool that we found that, for whatever reason, has been especially powerful was the idea of these videos, before and after videos. Now, we do other things. We do meetings, we do training. There's lots of ways that we share information. But videos have just struck a chord with our team. And there's a couple of reasons I think that it's worked. First, I don't know if it's maybe just China or other places, but we have a cell phone savvy workforce. They're very comfortable picking up their phone, taking pictures, taking videos. When we do Gemba walks, we don't write things down. You just take a picture of the problem and it goes straight into there. And so there's already a level of comfort with it. And so it wasn't a big stretch to say, hey, let's start doing these videos. The second thing, though, is that because of our size, I think 200 people especially is a really nice critical mass. If you have 5 people and you've got to do improvement videos for your morning meeting, you're on the hook. Your turn's coming up pretty fast. You're going to be doing these videos all the time. Whereas when you have 200 people, there's always a steady flow of videos in. And so there's not a pressure. It doesn't feel like a burden. It's still something we have to add in, but it doesn't feel like such a burden to some of our staff. And so I think that's 2 reasons why it's worked. Here's the folder for our 2024 morning videos, and we share 4 to 5 each day. And if you zoom in, so we did 783 last year. That's not 783 improvements. So I know one of the ideas that Ryan has is that an improvement isn't finished until you've shared it. We modify that slightly, and we say the improvement should be shared if we think it will add value. So a good example is if I've got a black pen in my Kaizen foam and I buy a red pen, I'm probably going to have to cut that into my Kaizen foam. I probably won't do a video on that, though. It's too low level. It's probably not going to inspire anybody to do the next thing. And so the driver behind our videos is it should be, we got to ask the question to ourselves, will our customer like it? And in this case, our customer is the rest of our team. Will they actually get value from it? And if there's no value, then let's skip that one, because there's so many ideas coming through every day. We don't need to bore our team. And I've seen that happen where sometimes a low level improvement, the people are standing there and they're like, yeah, I'm going to see another person cut scissors into Kaizen foam. It doesn't inspire. And so that's one really important thing, because that morning meeting really is this idea of this transfer of wealth, right? Especially when you're doing those videos and you're learning from what someone else did and turning it into something meaningful. So then you come to the middle part. And this actually kind of dawned on us that the idea of sharing is only really a little part of it. You can push the idea out there, but it's the hearing that really makes the spirit of Yokoten come alive. Because probably all of us could resonate. You can go on YouTube and you can scroll for hours and ingest at least content. But the number of things that we actually physically put into our brains and act on is really, really small. We're only absorbing a small amount of it. And so if you don't have a good absorbing culture, then all the great videos you could think of could go up there and they're not going to transform the team. And I've seen that. Even in our early days, you'd have some people and they're standing back and they're watching the video and they've got that glassy-eyed look where they're watching it, but you know it's not penetrating down. And it's probably not going to result in any meaningful change. And so one of the things you've got to really focus on, and what we do in our morning meetings, is we have to make sure that our listeners, our hearers, are ready to receive the message. How do we do that? A couple things. We make sure that each one of our videos is jam-packed with lean concepts. And so you've probably noticed if you've had a chance to see any of our videos, we keep them really, really short and pithy. We try not to go too long, but we want, in the short amount of time that you get, it to be dense with substance, so that the people who can see it, they can absorb it, they can understand exactly why you're doing it. I get it. This is all about visual management. This is all about excess inventory. And they grab that as quick as possible. So that's one thing that's really, really important to us. The second thing we're actually finding as a nice counterbalance to all that is that when you start producing all these videos, you get this amazing library of content. And so I just did a quick pull up here of anything to do with machine maintenance that was kind of in the last little while. And you can imagine if I go out and I hire someone new in our maintenance department, I can sit them down and in 15, 20 minutes, they can watch 30 videos that's going to show a before and after and explain the problem and the lean principle that was driving the improvement. And so I can take them out and I can walk them around and we can do it hand in hand. And there's a place for that. We actually want to coach them on the floor, but also to be able to give them a blast of here's exactly how we do it. Clear, easy to understand. So this is all lumped into that second category where you're preparing the hearers to hear. The last one is turning it into action. And again, this is one of those ones that it's the spirit of Yokoten really needs all three of these things to be active. You've got to have the sharing, you've got to have the receiving, and then you actually have to turn it into something. It's the same thing. If you're not digesting, you're ingesting and not digesting, you're going to you get this bloated group of very smart people, but there's no action on it. And we don't want that. And so we really want to make sure that anything we see, we have this spirit of Kaizen where we are going to improve. And here's just a simple example I thought was easy enough to show on the slides here. We had a company touring us, a big Swiss company. They were walking through and they saw this thing of binders. It didn't have the red tape on it. And they said, you guys have seen this red tape idea before, right? And I remember seeing it once. I think maybe it was on a trip with Paul or on a video that he did in Japan. And we were like, yeah, that's a good idea. And this is our QC station. And so he went and he was inspired by the idea. He went and he put his GPS tape on there and he uses red because our QC department is red. He did a video about this. And then after he did the video, our finance department saw it and they're like, yeah, that's a good idea. We could do that. And he had already thought, could other people benefit from it? Yeah, they could. And so sure enough, the accounting department does it. Now they finished and they actually came to my office and they're like, they've already done this one, so it doesn't really make sense to do another video. And so we asked the same question again. Do you think anyone else in the company could benefit from this improvement? And they kind of were like, yeah, probably. And so they ran an improvement video of the same improvement. And sure enough, purchasing did it on one side in the green. Our logistics department did it in the black. And you can see how it works. It's just a very simple system. The idea really, though, is that this whole chain is happening. Now, it doesn't mean you just endlessly keep putting up videos of putting GPS tape on our binders. Eventually, we kind of max out on that one, and it comes to the next thing. But this sort of chain is the one that we follow, where you come up with the idea and you consider your audience. You're making sure you've got that, what's the Japanese word, omotenashi. You're thinking about the next person. You've got to make sure your hearers are ready to receive it, and then you have to make sure you actually turn it into action. And if you get a group of people who do this over and over and over on a regular basis, you kind of have unlocked a level on them. They level up. And it's no different than if any of you play video games or anything like that. I played in the past. When you finally unlock a level, you don't want to ever go back down. You want to stay up there. You've got new armor or something like that. And that's so important. And when I think of getting to world class, and I think of how our team is really the one who's getting us there, you don't want to lose them. Once they've figured this out and they're part of this cycle, they're so precious and so valuable to us. And so how do you make sure that they stay motivated and stay in the business? One thing we've done, we've run an experiment, and some of you have seen some of the things we've done. We've tried to invest back into the business. So all of our staff get paid fairly well, and as they improve, their pay is adjusted. But we also want to make our company world-class. And so one of the things that we've done is we've invested just in a really, really awesome badminton court. So that was the sport that they wanted. I was hoping it'd be like floor hockey, but no, no such luck. Badminton's what they liked, and so badminton's what we're going to do. And we try to do it really, really well at a high level. Some of you may have seen we invested in a rooftop garden and just wanted to make the atmosphere of the company as comfortable as possible. We usually serve most of the food that is grown here just in our company restaurant. This is a new feature that we're just starting to, I'm going to put a video up maybe in the next couple of days, just kind of introducing this, but we're calling this our factory spa. And basically the idea is if you're not feeling great, if you got a sore back, you're working on the floor, maybe your leg's bugging you, whatever it is, how do you stay at your best? Most of us, we just power through. And if we're honest, when we power through, we're powering through at a really reduced level. And so if one of the 8 wastes is the genius of our staff and the talent that they bring, and we're only, we're just kind of trying to make it through to the end of the day, we're definitely not giving our best. And so could we make a place where staff can go and get refreshed and get back up to a really high level? We're really fortunate because one of our sewers in her previous career, she was sort of a massage physiotherapist. And so you just book it online and you can just go and use this room. So it's kind of a neat opportunity just again to build back into our staff. Again, why? Because we want to keep them in the business. We want to help to sustain that. And this is really what is powering our business, these 3 things and what the people are doing. So that's a little bit about our company. That's a bit about our journey. And also it's a little bit about how Yokoten sort of pulls it all together. And it's sort of the driving, sustaining force to what we're doing. Hope that helps.
Thank you, Norm. That was exceptional. I've written a whole heap of notes here, but what I'm going to do next is open it up to our first question. And that is coming from James. So James, over to you.
Thanks for sharing that, Norm. I think your presentation just answered my question. So I'm based at a mine site that has 2,200 people on it at any one point in time. And I'm trying to introduce the concept of improvement videos across the mine site. I'm not starting across the whole mine site. I'm just starting at just the maintenance department. And what I'm finding is everyone's very scared of the camera. They're unionized. I've got to provide permission forms. There's a lot of red tape involved. So what I'm doing is I'm filming the videos myself and I'm talking to the staff about their improvements. And it's starting to, get some green shoots. But, even the company management is quite resistant to the idea of improvement videos because they're not as scripted as they normally used to doing videos. I was just wondering if you had any sort of advice on that situation or if you would approach that any differently.
First of all, that's a good challenge. Well, I can't even imagine. That's a big group of people to work with. But it's also super exciting because you can imagine what the potential is if you could actually tap into that. Two things kind of come to mind, and I don't know, I'm sure you've probably already thought about them. Is it the video itself that's the problem, or is it really lean and just the idea of shifting to a continuous improvement kind of mentality? I'm curious what you think the bottleneck
that's a great
is.
question. The bottleneck would probably be, in some situations, it would be lean itself. They would just say, "Oh, I'm just making this improvement to do my job. I'm not doing lean. I'm just doing my job." And the other part would be definitely the video. I mean, a lot of the
Yeah,
gentlemen that I work with have been at the mine for 50 years. So,
sure.
as soon as I mention anything with technology, they're, no, no, thank you.
Yeah, that's understandable. To me, I think it sounds like you're actually already on the path. The first person that comes to mind is Alex Ramirez. He used to do these videos. He had a team that I don't know if they were unionized or not, but they had metal workers, and steel workers who were doing pretty rough and tumble jobs. And he would really be the person going through. And it sounds like very similar to what you were doing. It's part of the mentoring, really. You're checking in each day. How's your day going? What have you been up to? Any improvements? What have you? Show me how this works. And he would be recording that. And he took the burden on himself. For any of the same reasons. People didn't really feel comfortable being on there. They didn't want to hear their voice on it, or there was some, that this wasn't something that you could be official, and so he had to work with those things. But I think in a case like that, he just had to use with what could worked. And I would say this: there's nothing like some public recognition. That I think almost all of us like that. And so when you do your video and you say, "Hey, by the way, this is an improvement that Edwin made, and take a look at how awesome it is," even if you're doing the talking, and even if he's not even on the video, it's there. And wherever that's going to be shown, there's no way that person is going to not sort of put out their chest and feel good, because we all like hearing our name associated with a good idea. And so I think you're on a really good track. At our factory, we have the same problem. A lot of people don't like to talk. We also have a lot of people who've got thick accents. You can't even understand it. And so we actually use a AI voice, because if you did it, you wouldn't understand what they're saying, even if you did speak the language. And so we take the pressure off. They don't have to be in front of the camera. They can just show us the improvement. In fact, you'll see very rarely, even for our team, we try not to put them in the video too much, because some people are a little bit camera shy. They'd rather be behind it. Totally fine. We just accommodate as best we can, because the goal really is this: we want to build the culture. We want to get people sharing. We want them to feel honored for sharing, because all the best ideas are going to come from those people. And so whatever way works, I say you do it. I don't think there needs to be a firm, fixed way, for sure. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah,
That's a tough
no,
challenge
definitely.
you're facing, for sure.
Yeah, thanks, Norm. Yeah, it definitely helps. And when you walk through the Maslow hierarchy of needs, like they're definitely in that physiological safety
Yeah,
barrier part, and maybe going into that level two, safety and security. So that present
yeah,
part of that presentation really helped as well. So thank you.
good. Oh, that's great. I think too, I just add that there really doesn't have to be a one size fits all. Different companies are going to have different strategies. I know the way that Paul has his people do it in FastCap is different than the way we do it. I think you want it to evolve to, I mean, our goal is really to help our own businesses prosper. And so whatever works, that's what you push on that as much as you can.
Thank you, Norm.
Thanks, James, for that question. Hopefully you feel a bit more encouragement for the path you're on, and you're heading in the right direction, mate. So our next question is going to come from Phil. Over to you, Phil.
Hey Norm, what a pleasure having you back on. And
It
every
sure is.
time I listen to you talk and see your videos, I'm just totally inspired, and you learn so much from it. I guess my question I've got for you today: when you first started out, I can imagine there's not a lot of companies, if many companies in China, doing 2-second lean. So in the early days, how did you get your team, I guess, inspired into this 2-second lean side of things?
There aren't very many companies doing 2-second lean that we know of. I would say there's probably 5 that we've connected with. They're spread across the country. They're all in different phases of their journey. But even though there aren't 2-second lean companies, we have seen a lot of companies who are doing a lot of really great work. They don't call it 2-second lean. They sometimes don't even know they don't even call it lean, but the principles are at work there. And so one thing that we found is to just look for great behavior. And when we see really good, honorable behavior that kind of fits with the lean principles, you grab hold of it. And it could come from anywhere. And so sometimes we see companies that are a complete mess. You go in and they'll even have 5S, or they sometimes have 7S written up on the wall, and their factory is just absolute deplorable. I mean, it's shocking. But within that, you'll see these moments of excellence, and I think that's what it really is. It's falling in love with little moments of excellence that you can start bringing back to your team. At the beginning, and even still to this day, every single morning meeting, we include a video from someone else in the Lean community. And so what we do is we'll grab that and we'll have someone in the office, or we have an English translator. She'll translate it, and she becomes awesome at Lean because every single video we do, she has to translate it. So she has to understand the principle well enough to be able to translate it. And so she works with our Lean team and does an amazing job. And we share that in our morning meeting. We have the same problem that a lot of people have. Some people say, oh man, that person's accent was, what language was that? And you go, oh, they're from the UK, or something like that. And it works that way. But we take the time to do that. So every day there's a video from outside, always looking for excellence in things we do. And maybe just a third one is what we found is that there are companies who they're doing things, they're so close, and they don't know exactly what they're doing. You go in and you'll see a good example is we were at a company recently and they had amazing SOPs, just fantastic. And you think, who did this? How did that come about? And you find out that they've got this thread of excellence woven into their business, but it's just a small thread. It is not a whole tapestry. When you find people like that, you'll say, hey, if you're ever interested, come to our factory. Why don't you bring some people and you come and see us? And so we're trying to create suppliers or contacts that appreciate what they have within and try to exploit it. And so, but it's lonely. It's kind of shocking in some ways that a country this big with such a focus on manufacturing, especially, has so few Lean companies. I would say one thing though that I have noticed. I've been in China for 13 years, and there's an ability to pivot quite quickly here. And so, I think when a new idea comes along that actually proves to be beneficial, people are not afraid to grab it and go with it. And so, I think in some ways it's dry tinder, and with a couple good role models and examples, there could be a great opportunity for seeing lots of other companies start doing it. The other thing too is that a lot of Chinese companies, they are just, their whole business model works on really low margins. And so when you have a business model that works super low, something has to give. And in a lot of cases, we already know this. It's not good safety practices. Maybe the quality is down. A lot of the same things that come to mind when we think of it, some manufacturing in China. But there's also an ability to work with those small margins. Kind of gives you an adaptability and nimbleness that I think is pretty amazing. And so when you're used to being able to not have a big cushy margins or cushy profits, you can actually survive that way. The idea of Lean all of a sudden you go, wow, that's amazing. Because Lean really is just wherever your waste is, your waste can convert right into profit if you're able to figure out how to do that. It's a nice formula. And so all the waste in your business that could end up help your bottom line if you figure out a way to actually extract it and eliminate it. And so I would not be surprised to see, especially when hardships come, if tariffs come, a lot of those things, they start having the reverse effect. Companies have to actually now focus on how do I get better? How do I improve? And so it's going to be interesting times in the next little while. And in a way, we're kind of excited to be positioned where we are to maybe be an encouragement to other companies.
Thanks, Phil, for that question. And I got to say, hearing your answer, Norm, you made a good point that even though we may not be able to have a 2-second Lean company that we can go view in our backyard, every company has something that perhaps we can learn from. And in turn, who knows, we might be able to turn them into an advocate of 2-second Lean. So that was an awesome response. Yeah. Okay. So something that's quite topical in our ANZ 2-second Lean feed is a question that's going to come from Sean. So Sean, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Norm, for coming on. Mine's only a simple one. We've had the discussion here in the group. What apps do you find work best for your staff that gets across all age groups? With our company, you've got the young people who would seem to be videoing in their social circles, but don't actually want to do so much at work. And old people that just don't know how to.
Yeah, great question. We've tried a couple different things. In the end, we've sort of settled on 2 main apps that we use to basically do all of our videos. We use iMovie, which is just sort of built into the iOS on your iPhone. And then we use CapCut. And between those 2, we get more than enough functionality. And we find that they're fairly easy to use. If you invest a little bit of time up front, you can set up templates. And, an hour in advance is like 50 hours later. It'll come back and be really beneficial. Probably in about 30% of our staff would have iPhones. And so iMovie works fairly well. But for the other staff, then CapCut's sort of the ideal one to go with. Yeah.
That's been mentioned in our group. So that seems to be the way to go.
I was just going to say on that, we do it on our phones and we do it on our desktops. So The main person who does our video, she uses CapCut on her desktop. Just I think some of the actual adjusting and some of the translation stuff like that is a little bit easier, and so CapCut works nicely that way.
Oh, that leads into my second part of having the lean team. And you've just said that somebody is editing some of it and changing. How much time would you actually devote or spend on altering videos that people send in?
Yeah, that's a great question. And to be honest, it's been a process. When we first started, our videos were so deplorable. You'd have the most shocking footage, hard to follow. It'd be shaking around. It was just, we had to learn as we went. And one of the things that we did early on, thankfully, is we decided that we were going to treat our videos like a product. And even though we don't get any money for it, we want to put our best into the video. And so by treating it like a product, and also we had to keep it short. That was another thing. Just in our morning meeting, you can imagine if you have 200 people and you sit there, we'd have someone who would do like a 4-minute video. And so you just ate up 800 man minutes or person minutes of productivity vanished in a 4-minute video. We just couldn't afford that. We found that some people would start putting on little emojis and there'd be a lot of things and it would start to get distracting. And so we needed to standardize it. And so in the end, what we decided was that the best for us would be, well, not only treat it like a product, but we're going to make it so standardized that basically we're going to squish a little bit of the creativity out because we're really interested in just having good before and after videos. This isn't really a forum to express yourself in other artistic ways. You can do that on just TikTok or YouTube if you want. And that actually has helped us a lot. And so what ends up happening now is that if someone has an improvement and they want to make a video, they have two choices. If they want to make it, go for it. If they send the footage through to the person who does the final edit and it's sloppy, it gets rejected. It's just like a part that comes down the line. It's not good enough. You've got to do it again. And we'll do that a couple times early on. And I find that it's the same thing. The pain up front of coaching, of training, of getting better at it makes all the difference down the road. And eventually the footage comes through and it's pristine every time and there's hardly any rework. And it's just like a nice product moving through your factory. But if there's someone who just says, I don't have the time or I don't want to, or I can't do it right, I can never do it as well as Xiaolan does it, then no problem. That option is also available. And we have a one dedicated person who basically send them a text, say, hey, I've got a video improvement. Whenever you have time, can you come out and I'll walk you through it. And she just comes out and she's basically saying, hey, walk me through it. And it's almost all B-roll, and we add the voice after. We found that both methods work really well. It takes us about 12 to 15 minutes to produce a video. And the more you make, as the materials coming in get better, it's kind of just like in manufacturing, really. The good raw materials, a good finished product, it works nicely. And so the raw materials in this case are really good footage, really clear before and after, demonstrated well, and then what is the main principle. And if we capture all that in one shot, it actually gets fairly easy. The other thing too is that we keep our videos so short that you don't really have to get into a big, long-winded discussion. And so a lot of the intimidation kind of goes away because 20 seconds, 30 seconds to do a before and after goes pretty fast. I know that some companies really push that everybody should make the videos, but our goal is just that we want the flywheel to spin as fast as possible. And so if making the video is what's slowing people down, no problem. We'll make it easy. We'll have someone else who actually enjoys making videos. They're talented and gifted at it. And so we're happy to let them do that.
So our final question for pre-prepared is from Harry. Over to you, Harry.
Hey, g'day Norm. Thanks for joining us. It's always love watching your videos as well. They're they're always nice and short and to the point, and they're good. So cheers to that.
Thanks, Harry.
Yeah, my question, being such a big company with so many different departments, what are some things that you put in place to make sure that you do achieve Yokoten between all your departments? Like I believe you have your morning meetings with all the different departments. How do you make sure ideas are still being transferred? I'd just love to hear more about how it works in your company.
Great question. And it is a bit of a challenge because you get people who are in really different disciplines altogether. And the person who's welding and the person who's doing finance, it would seem at first that there's probably not going to be a lot of crossover in their roles. But we do try as much as possible to keep things mixed up. And you already touched on it, Harry. The morning meeting is sort of our keystone moment where everyone comes together. Because of the size of our company, we actually do 3 morning meetings. We kind of divide it up into 3 different segments. And so we have a sort of an office staff and leaders morning meeting. There's a metal production morning meeting, and there's a sewing morning meeting. Each one has about 60 to 65 people. So during those times, it's really focused. The content is exactly the same, videos, the exact same updates, all that flows the same. It's just a different facilitator depending on the way we do it. But the idea is that if it's a counting improvement, for example, you'll see that in all the other meetings as well. And it goes back to one of our goals. If you're going to do a video, you want to make sure it's useful. So if someone's saying, oh, I've just figured out a different way to calculate some really complicated thing, that might be a great improvement, but it's not probably going to help anyone else in the business except for maybe the person sitting right next to them because it's so specific. Same thing if someone says, oh, I have a small little adjustment on the way I weld something, it's going to be hard to extrapolate that. So we're really looking for the principles. Do the lean principles translate to other departments? And then it's worthy of sharing. Another thing we do that has been really, really great. And we started this probably our third year into our lean journey, is we started these daily Gemba walks. Every single day, there's a different team, and there's 5 teams, and the team is made up of every department. Everyone gets kind of squished together. You're not with your own department at all. What those people will do is we have 8 different zones in the factory. And so there's sort of this big rotation where you're slowly working your way through each zone. So if you're a Monday team, today you're be in the sewing building B or something like that. And you go in there, and the idea in those meetings is not so much going through and talking with the staff, but really just going through and observing where are there opportunities to improve. And what we found is that in the early days, production people could instantly start saying, wow, there's a lot of work in progress over there. There's a lot of excess, that person keeps bending over. That can't be very helpful. And it was the production people who were spotting it. And that's where we realized, so the rest of our staff aren't trained enough. They don't have the eyes to see the waste. And that was exactly why we wanted them on those teams. And what happened is as they're immersed in that time after time after time, they're kind of learning by doing. And they start to begin to see the waste. And now they're and we just take pictures. If we see the problem, we take the picture, and that just instantly goes to the group leader in that area. But now those people from different departments, different disciplines are starting to spot the same things. Because the reality is, and I've heard this said, if you put a painting on a wall, a brand new picture or painting or photo from a trip, you notice it about 8 times. But on the 9th time, it's physically there. I know the map behind me is there. But if someone came and wrote that Christchurch was the capital of New Zealand instead of Auckland, I might never notice that. But even though I'm standing in front of it all the time, I'm looking at it. And it's the same thing in our factories or in our plants or in our offices. Stuff turns into wallpaper really fast. Having people with different disciplines, having them with different sets of eyes and different contexts, they're going to see different things. And so to me, you want to grab that genius. You want to grab all those gifts, even though it's rare. I'll admit that someone, for example, in our purchasing department comes up with a really awesome new way to stitch a seam. It rarely happens. That doesn't happen. But in maybe how to lay out their work area, how to avoid excess motion, how to cut back on transportation, that's been happening right in front of them over and over and over, that is very useful. And so just the fact that you have fresh eyes, people trying to see waste, we find that that's really valuable.
Thanks, Harry. Norm, everyone on this call is a leader trying to move 2-second lean forward in their company. Are there any things that we can do to promote Yokoten into the culture? What are the things that you think we can do as leaders?
One of the things we did it seemed like it was a small little adjustment, but people really liked it. And it's something I've kind of touched on earlier. But in every one of our lean videos, I don't show them on anything I put up on YouTube. I edit it out, but it always starts with a picture of the person who made the improvement. And that's important because, for example, if someone in our metal fabrication made an improvement, but we're showing it in sewing or in the office, we don't know who that is, right? We don't know who came up with this idea. And so when you put that picture up there, it instantly honors the work and the thought, because finding the improvement is hard. If someone can come up with it, then we can figure out how to implement it. But sometimes it's just, what can we actually fix? So when you actually get someone who is able to give you that idea, which is so precious and worth so much, we found that when that picture goes up, they instantly get a bit of a boost, and it feels good. That's one. A second thing that we do at our factory is Paul Akers makes a really important point about not paying for improvements, and we try to do the same. We don't pay for improvements, but we do want to be generous with what we gain from it. So I'll give you an example. If someone comes up with an improvement that maybe over the course of a year is going to save us $5,000, to have milk teas for our whole factory costs about $200. And so this spend on $200 to keep that energy, keep that momentum going, it's almost worth it. If I just gave that person $200, they might be happy. Who wouldn't? Like $200. They'll be very happy. But the reality is I don't get the cultural boost that for our whole team that someone does. And not only that, if the person comes up with a really great improvement and everyone in the factory is getting something special that day, and it just might be something small, and they know, oh, I got that because Trevor came up with an awesome idea. So we're all getting milk teas because of him. Well, Trevor's feeling pretty good right now. And he's thinking, yeah, this feels nice. And so we can't do it on all things. And sometimes, if it's a $100 improvement, we're not going to spend $200 to compensate for it. But this idea of making sure we're giving back. Lean gets such a bad rap because guilty as charged. When we first came to Lean, we came because we were trying to cut costs. We were trying to pull out unnecessary, we're in survival mode. But Lean gets a bad rep because that's what a lot of people suspect that's what's happening. Oh, you just want to get more work out of me. You just want to somehow get a little bit more to the bottom line. And it's not really going to benefit me. You've got to prove and show that your intentions are actually noble. You don't have to do big things. I mean, the garden was a perfect example, or letting people go and get a back massage when they're not feeling great. We're finding that the returns on that are magnified and they're multiplied because it doesn't really cost that much. but you get really good bang for your buck. And so there was a lean conference this past year, and someone asked what one of the big mistakes was that we made at our business. And one of them, for us at least, was that we probably tried to take some of the wins that we were getting from lean, and we used it as a dividend to our owners and to our shareholders. And they were very happy with it, but we probably could have invested that back in and gotten an even bigger return, because that would have started multiplying. And so there's a fine line. Of course, it's a business and we want to prosper the business, but we also want to make sure that our staff feel that they are being dignified and respected and that they're part of this.
We're almost at the end, but I've got one final question for you.
Sure.
With your 300 plus videos, what's your favorite?
It's a bit of a crass one, to be honest, and I wasn't sure. I don't know. I'm still learning what YouTube's policies are. We went to a supplier once, and they had this beautiful showroom. And we were at the end, and I was looking through the products, and I was really impressed. I needed to use the washroom, and they said, no problem. It's just around the corner. And so out I went, and it was the same. It was not a big factory. The same washroom that everyone in their plant was using, and you'll find it online. We could send it out after, but you see one of the most horrific, shocking displays of organizational excellence. You know, it's quite shocking when you pull your phone out and start recording your bathroom experience. But I came back to ours, and I didn't want to set it up to make it look like it was good. I just walked out and looked at at the washrooms out on our plant floor, and the rope was tight, the standard was high, and it was just sort of a relief to go, this is really working. This really is working. It's not smoke and mirrors. You don't have to fake it. If you do all these things and you follow these simple rules, it's not easy, but the rules are fairly simple and you just keep at it. It really makes a difference. So of all the videos I like, the one about the toilet is probably my favorite.
I got to say that it's been an absolute pleasure in the preparation for this, but also to meet you, and anyone that's on this call just realizes just how much of a generous guy that you are, and a humble guy, and what you put out on your videos are exceptional. Yeah, I can't thank you enough for participating today, and I think everyone would be feeling that sentiment. There's 17 people in the room today who have
amazing.
Spent that evenings with you, and we've got so many good nuggets out of it. So just a big thank you from everyone from Australia and New Zealand on this call.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, it's a real privilege. Thank you. You know, one thing that is wonderful about working in China is that some of the struggles that some companies have, we don't have, and we have our own set of struggles. And I'll give you an example. Yeah. When we started morning meetings, and every person had to lead a morning meeting, some companies, he's going to face a lot of resistance. I don't want to get up and do a PowerPoint. I'm comfortable doing that. And that's a big deal. Here, we just said, everyone's going to do one. And that was the end of it. And there's no discussion. And it just sort of happens. Same with when we do the washrooms. We just kind of came in and said, okay, starting next Monday, Norm's going to do the washroom the first day. And then here's the list. And there's no discussion or things like that. And you can get away with that. You don't have pushback, and pushback would be wonderful in some ways, because that just helps you to quickly identify the person they're not going to fit. They're not going to fit right off the bat, because you wouldn't dare in a culture like this resist unless you were ready to probably move on. And so that works that way. So when we started with Lean, we said the same thing. We said, we want to give a really good improvement that you think is worthy to be shared. You have to make the video. And that's what we started. We did start that way. Mm-hmm. And that's where we really suffered, because what we noticed is that, and it sounds shallow and vain almost, but a great idea poorly presented gets lost in the whole thing. And it's probably true with anything, right? I mean, whether it's a presentation or a book or anything you do, an email, if it's too sloppy, you just lose people. And that's what was happening. We were getting, like I said, we had videos that were shaking, the light was bad, they were zooming way in, zooming out, zooming in, and you couldn't even tell what was going on. And so we really took, I'd say it probably took about 5 to 6 months of just blasting our team. And sometimes we'd reject footage 8 times. I remember this one guy over at our lady, over at our embroidery station. And, she took it. And one of the rules that we have, I didn't mention it on the call, but on the talk, but you should be able to watch it and kind of say, I see it before. Oh, I can clearly see there's an after. This is so obvious. Then the words become it's just a guide, right, to help you, because the footage is actually so good. It's doing the job. But you'd have times where this lady would take the video and send it to us. And at the beginning, I had to be involved with it. And I was sort of working with the lady that does our editing. And she'd be like, do you think this is good enough? And I'd be like, I don't have a clue what it is. So reject it. It's a reject. And by like the third one, she's like, I don't know what to do here, because we've already rejected this one so many times. Should we just do it again? It's got to be perfect. It's no different than our product. We wouldn't finally say, well, we've reworked this product 5 times, just let it go, because I can't stomach the thought of asking someone to do it a sixth time. But I'll tell you what, that lady's videos are awesome now, or she uses the Surface, one or the other. But in that case, in that particular case, the lady did actually keep doing videos, and she's gotten really good at it. Because a lot of us, I remember even when Paul started, he showed that video of the vertical video and the horizontal video. I don't know if you've seen that one.
Yeah.
It was the same thing. I'd never thought of how I do my videos, but that improved my own home videos, that I just do with my family, even thinking about it that way. So you shared an awesome video just on how to do better PowerPoints. And we've been doing PowerPoint, all of us have been doing PowerPoints for 20 years or close to it probably. And still we're realizing, oh my goodness, there's so much to improve. And so a Kaizen culture should be open to it. And that's kind of what we did. But it was painful. I've got some of the old ones. In fact, they're just diabolical. I may put a couple up on YouTube. I'll give you one example that I pulled up. I was trying to think how to maybe share it today, but I thought it was going to be one piece too much. But there was one where a guy, and I should put this one online, but he was showing the pain that he had to do when he had to change a part and how long it takes to unscrew it and screw it. And so the natural thing that he did, he had someone standing there holding it, and he just unscrewed it, and it took like 2 minutes. And so you're sitting there, and he introduces it, says, "This is the problem I have. It's such a pain. Let me show you." And he sits there and he does it, and it's effective because you're watching him do it, and you're thinking, "Wow, they're not even going to do this in double speed. We're just going to watch this in real live time." And so the point was made. Yeah, I get it. You have a terrible solution. Then he shows the fix, and it takes 5 seconds, and you're like, "That is great. I'm so glad." But you've lost everybody, right? Because no one wants to watch a 2 minutes of a guy just fastening in a socket or something like that. So to me, that's one of the fun things. And it goes back, I can't remember where I heard it. I think it might have been on the guy who wrote Atomic Habits, but he talks about how like an hour before 9 is worth 2 after. And it's the same idea, right? I think this is where the 6 months of pain at the beginning is hopefully worth I won't say a lifetime of lean videos, but it's worth it, right? There is another side, and you get through the hard stuff, and it gets so much easier. And if you just stuck with it and suffered through it, we'd still be suffering through it, and we probably wouldn't be sharing our videos because we'd be too embarrassed of them.
Do you think you would be where you are if you did not use before and after videos? Could you have done it without the before and after videos?
I don't think so. I'll say this. They're kind of like our mile markers on the road. It's amazing how you have a setup or something like that, and you use it for a long time, and you finally make the change, and you so quickly just forget about everything that went before. So we've had cases where you've got improvements that are starting to, they're stacking big time. You're doing it, some people weren't even here in the early days of what that process was like. And I'll give you an example. There's this one, it was actually what got us into lean, that introduced us to Paul Akers. We have this one customer, he makes a golf net called the Net Return. The owner was from the States, and he was walking through the factory, and I was showing him, I said, "Take a look at this cell that we've just developed." This is before we had even started lean. And we our engineers had come up with the idea, and I don't know where they got it, but we moved, instead of having like everything in a line, they had it set up like a U-shaped cell, which I know now, but at the time I didn't know what it was. And we were all like standing back saying, "Look at this, instead of having 3 people, one guy's doing it, and he's hardly moving, and it's so efficient." And we thought we'd discovered some great thing that no one had ever thought of before. And I was so proud because Paul from this company was walking through the factory, and I said, "I got to show you what our guys came up with." And he's like, "Oh yeah, that's a U-shaped cell." I was like, "Oh, you mean that you're familiar with that?" He's like, "You got to read 2-second lean." And that's how we found it. But fast forward to today, and that cell has evolved like 15 more times. And if you look at what we had, that we were so proud of, what we thought was the apex of manufacturing, to what we have today, it's so laughable. But it's actually, that gives us so much hope and encouragement and fulfillment when you see that. And when sometimes that's what we'll do. We'll kind of go back and we'll thread, or we'll string a couple of our videos together and say, look at where we were and where we are. And that's just a way of kind of celebrating the achievements. And it's, like I said, it's kind of milestones. Of course you can do it without videos. Of course you can. Yeah. But they've been so central to our journey. So, yeah.
Well, it's like Tony Robbins says, progress equals happiness. And are you noticing the progress, the before and after? It actually creates this joy inside.